Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously fascinating lecture by Dr. Robert A. Peterson. We're going to be looking at the historical and textual proofs he outlines for the deity of Christ. If you've ever wanted to visualize exactly how early church doctrines were derived straight from the source text, well, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty provocative quote from the lecture. Dr. Peterson states, "The Bible whispers the deity of the Holy Spirit, it shouts the deity of Christ." So what does he mean here? Well, he's saying that while the entire Trinity is present in the text, the specific focus of the gospel actually necessitates a loud, undeniable declaration of who Jesus is. According to the lecture, the source text leaves absolutely no room for ambiguity about Christ's divine status. Why? Because theologically speaking, trusting him for salvation requires actually knowing his true identity. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The core theological claim. 2. Proof 1. Divine nature. 3. Proof 2. Divine titles. 4. Proof 3. Divine attributes. And 5. The ultimate mystery.
Section 1. Core theological claim. Anchoring in Hebrews 1. Section 2. Proof 1. Divine nature. The substance of deity.
Right, so Dr. Peterson uses Hebrews 1 as his foundational text because it uniquely houses all these historical proofs in one concentrated hub. And he starts by arguing that Jesus shares the exact essential nature of God. We're talking fundamentally here, not just functionally. To explain this, he points out two incredibly brilliant first-century visual metaphors used by the writer of Hebrews. On the left, we've got the sun and the ray. On the right, an image of minting coins. Let's break down the theological truths these metaphors are actually communicating.
It is just fascinating how much heavy theology is packed into the simple image of the sun and its rays. First up, it implies revelation. You can't just stare at the invisible sun without going completely blind, right? But the light makes it known. Christ is that revealing light. Second, equality. The ray is literally the sun prolonged. It's the exact same stuff. And third, subordination. But notice, this is a functional subordination, not an essential one. The ray comes from the sun, distinct in its role, but entirely identical in its nature.
And this brings us to the precise terminology used in the lecture. That second metaphor we mentioned, minting a coin, where a die strikes a soft metal to leave an exact imprint, uses the Greek word apostasis. Later on, at the Council of Nicaea, the early church fathers used the term homoousios, which translates to of the same substance. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Viewing Christ as merely a good man or, say, a created angel is considered a fatal theological error by the source text. Why? Because a mere human simply cannot bear the weight of salvation. He has to be the exact imprint, literally the exact same essence as God.
Section 3. Proof 2. Divine titles. Names carrying divine weight.
Here, Dr. Peterson walks us through a pretty straightforward logical syllogism. Basically, if God uses these titles, and Jesus uses them in a divine context, well, Orthodox theology naturally concludes Jesus is God. Take the title Lord, for instance. In Hebrews 1, it's used to describe the actual creator of the universe. Son of God was used in John 5 when Jesus healed on the Sabbath, which was a huge deal because Jewish rabbis believed only God continued his providential work on the Sabbath. And then, of course, there's the title God itself. When the doubting disciple Thomas touches Jesus' wounds, he says, "My Lord and my God." Peterson makes a great point here. This wasn't just some exclamation tossed up to the heavens. The Greek text shows it was a direct address to Jesus, a Jewish man explicitly recognizing his divine identity.
Now, out of all these titles, Son of Man was actually Jesus' absolute favorite self-designation, and he always used it in the third person. It's so fascinating because it intentionally befuddled his enemies. You see, it draws from two completely different Old Testament streams. On the left, you have Psalm 8, which speaks of this weak, vulnerable human who has no place to lay his head. But on the right, you have Daniel 7, which describes a cosmic, sovereign figure coming on the clouds of heaven to receive ultimate worship. By using this specific title, Jesus was holding both his absolute human weakness and his triumphant deity together in one incredible tension.
Moving on to Section 4. Proof 3. Divine attributes. The qualities of the Creator.
So in this proof, the lecture zeroes in on the divine attribute of immutability. That's the idea that God's fundamental character is entirely changeless. Dr. Peterson contrasts the physical universe with the sun. Hebrews says the earth and the heavens will perish. They'll actually wear out like an old garment that needs to be rolled up and replaced. But in stark contrast to that, the sun remains exactly the same and his years have no end. This kind of stability, this eternal, unchanging nature, is presented as an exclusive attribute of absolute deity.
Which brings us to Section 5, the ultimate theological mystery, sovereignty versus responsibility. To wrap things up, Dr. Peterson neutrally presents his broader theological view, a framework he calls Calvinistic compatibilism. And this explores the really dynamic interplay between two forces that seem totally opposed. On one hand, we have absolute divine sovereignty, God's ultimate providence over all events. On the other hand, we have genuine human responsibility, the concept that humans make real, highly meaningful, and culpable choices. The real challenge here is setting parameters that affirm both of these realities without canceling either of them out.
The lecture gives us two prime biblical examples of this paradox in action. First, think about the story of Joseph's brothers in the Old Testament. Their betrayal of Joseph was a horrible, truly culpable sin. Yet, Joseph later acknowledges that God completely orchestrated it to save their family from famine. But the ultimate example of this is the cross itself. The text states plainly that Jesus was crucified by the hands of wicked, guilty men. Yet, simultaneously, it was God's most sovereign, providential act in history to bring about salvation. It's this idea that both divine and human actions are shaping history at the exact same time.
Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought to chew on. While we've clarified the structured framework of Dr. Peterson's theology today, breaking down the nature, the titles, and the attributes of Christ, we are ultimately left staring right at a paradox. Can we ever fully, logically reconcile this massive tension between absolute divine design and genuine human freedom? Or is this dynamic interplay just a profound mystery, meant to be embraced, designed to spark our ongoing curiosity? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.